All right, we welcome Craig David.
How are you?
Well, back to Undercover, isn't it? Because 10 years ago you were here.
10 years, see? Get me on a show and it takes me 10 years to get back.
I know, I mean, gee, we must have said something wrong back
No,
then.
no, no,
It took us
just
10 years to get back in the building here.
Working hard. I was just trying to get past the volcanic ash, so we got the problem getting on the plane from London to get over, but we're here now.
That's good. That's
We're
good.
here now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, does it all feel like a distant memory to you now from when that first record first hit?
Do you know what? It actually feels like only yesterday, because I remember releasing the first record. I remember the feeling I had, like, just finishing the first album. So to have those memories and be able to shut my eyes and put myself back in that place, it does only feel like yesterday, but 10 years has gone so fast, and there's so many things and places that I've gone in that period of time. So very blessed little 29-year-old.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a bit about Born to Do It a bit later on, because I guess it was a bit of a part of his history. But right now, there's something a bit exciting. There's the new album. And, we're talking about a whole range of songs on here that, are sort of Motown, some aren't Motown, there's a bit of Stax in there, and a lot of your own stuff in here as well. So it's quite a mix of music. Are you blending all of your influences with your own music as a result of the new record now?
Yeah, I mean, this album was songs that had inspired me growing up as a kid. My parents were playing these songs, so I think consciously I was having this music being played to me in the household. But then at the same time on the radio, I was hearing subconsciously these songs all the time. You can't help but heard it through the grapevine or Signed, Sealed, Delivered, growing up and even now. So I always wanted to do an album of the songs that had inspired me, but I felt that it was a timing thing for me, because one, vocally I didn't feel confident enough back then to sing these type of songs, because I think my vocals have improved since then. And then also just to understand and recognise the importance of these songs, and to know as a songwriter I'd already accomplished so much that you would be allowed to do a record like this. So I'm very proud of this album. It's a exciting, different challenge for me.
I guess for you it must be like giving back a bit too, because these are songs that inspired you to start with, and it becomes a sort of an education process to your fans.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many songs. I think this is, for me, if I felt like if I could release this album and people accepted it and felt like, you know what, because there's a holy grail with some of these songs. I say some of them, with 90% of these songs. So anyone else covering these songs other than the original artist, people tend to be like dubious as to how and where you're going to take it. But I think the fact of releasing this and getting such a positive response, I'd love to do another album like this down the line, because these are just a touch on the iceberg of actually the songs that have just inspired me. There's so many songs. So I think this could be the start of something, as well as my new material for albums. Yeah,
because we're talking about some classic songs from people like The Temptations, Stevie Wonder in here, but a track like All Alone Tonight, which is that's your song with a bit of I guess sampling thrown in.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to make. I wanted to give the album. I wanted to introduce people to the album in a way that wasn't straight up covers. And I think, especially for the first single, which is One More Lie, Stand in the Shadows, and All Alone Tonight, which are the two songs which I reworked the verses, but used samples from older soul songs. I felt like it was a way of bringing people into currently at the moment within the R&B pop world, it seems like the Kesha, TikTok, and Lady Gaga's of this world, and Black Eyed Peas, David Guetta's have all done very much fall to the floor house songs. And I thought, well, I could do that, but still use some of that soul element, slowly bring people to get to Heard It Through the Grapevine as a straight cover. And it's been a nice introduction to that.
With, when we're talking about, One More Lie for a start, Standing in the Shadows, what came first, One More Lie, or did you have the song Standing in the Shadows that you wanted to do and then create One More Lie around that? How did that come about?
It was I was a big fan of Four Tops, so with Standing in the Shadows, that song in particular, when I tried to cover the song at first, I just felt like it could just speed up just a little bit, and then I thought I could rework the verse melody, and I was starting to get into creative mode, even though I tried to hold myself back, so I wanted this record to be about covers. So I was trying to put the pen and paper to the side, got into creative mode, and I thought, if I'm going to start to play with the song, let me not treat it as a cover, let me treat it as an original song, using a sample for the chorus, and rewrite the melody and the lyrics in the verses, and it just created something that I felt was a bit more me in that sense, more than me trying to just cover the song straight, because I think that their version was much better, slightly slower in their temperament. So it was cool.
This Could Be Love is one of yours.
Yes. This Could Be Love was the one song that we wrote from scratch. And I think for me it was the hardest song to write because you're going up against classics. So to fit a cheeky little song in there, it has to be one that people feel like they've either heard it somewhere before, which actually a lot of people said they thought it was a Stevie Wonder song that was a B-side from one of his records that they never heard. And I thought, perfect. That's all we need. As long as it feels like it's part of this record, we're cool. So it was nice to put my pen to paper just a little bit.
The Curtis Stigers track, one more.
I Wonder Why.
I Wonder Why, Curtis Stigers. It's sort of the odd man out, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the album, it seemed to go down that route of being like a Motown conceptual record, which it isn't, because it just happened to be that those songs were the ones that really inspired me growing up, and I guess shows the influence and power of Motown Records as a label. But the Curtis Stigers song is probably one of my favourite songs, I say of all time, but it's definitely in there because it's just a beautiful melody with such an incredible lyric, and the way he sings it is so simple, but the performance is what carries it. And I think it's just a song that I'm surprised that no one's covered that song before. So I threw that one into the mix before Universal, my new label, were about to put that little Motown imprint on there, thinking, oh, this is good, we've got a nice little concept, and then I killed the whole thing with I Wonder Why, Curtis Tigers. And also having Dock of the Bay on it, which is from Atlantic Recordings, so it kind of slightly messed that up.
Yeah, well, that's right, Dock of the Bay is a Stax song. Yeah. So what are you? Are you more a Motown guy or a Stax guy? It's like that Beatles versus Stones question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, looking at how many songs are from Motown, I'd have to say Motown. And there was, I mean, the Jacksons, I mean, Michael Jackson, I mean, for me I tried to, actually, funny enough, try to cover some Michael Jackson songs, which again, weren't necessarily from the era of where this record necessarily is, but it was kind of a little bit more kind of like hitting the early 90s. And it was very difficult with Michael Jackson songs. If you try to cover one of his songs, it always feels like Michael should be singing this. As good as it may be, it always sounds like it should be him. So there were a few that didn't quite make the grade as well.
What did you try out that didn't make it?
I did You Are Not Alone. I did Leave Me Alone. I wasn't trying to do like an alone sort of theme with Michael Jackson, but both. It's
a good idea for the next album,
why
though.
not?
The Alone album.
Why not?
Yeah.
I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
The thing was, it's just difficult to kind of. Every time I finished the song and it sounded cool, but I was just like, it's not Michael singing this. So I just felt, you know what? Unless I'm going to do it justice, just put it aside. There's so many beautiful songs out there. We'll get back to something else.
Now, there's 2 Marvin Gaye, 2 Temptations, 2 Stevie Wonders. So are they like particular favourites of yours as artists?
Yeah. I'd have to say, Stevie Wonder. I just love the way, lyrically, when you listen to his songs, he paints pictures of things for someone who's never seen the world in the way that a lot of us have, most of us have. I mean, I think it's just like he paints a picture in more vivid colours than most people can, and I think that it was just incredible to listen to what he's saying and the way in which he explains his songs through his lyrics. It's very narrative. And then vocally, when you sing a song like For Once in My Life, the respect that you have as a vocalist, I mean, he is seriously singing, and the performance. All those artists, when you look at the Marvin Gayes and you look at the Stevie Wonders, Temptations, performance. And I think that's why people tend to always go back to a certain place, because there was a time and place where time in the studio was costly. The technology would you have microphones was set up really for 3 people on the microphone at the same time. Harmonies had to be tight, band had to be ready, everyone ready to go, press record, let's go. Make a mistake, well, it either stays on the record or you do the whole thing again. Now, today you can go in and do one verse one day, come in next week, do the second verse, do the chorus the next month. You know what, I might do some ad-libs like 3 months down the line. Performance is different nowadays. So I wanted to try and go back to the old school in terms of that mentality.
Now, every song that you've used on here, other than, of course, yourself, is American. England is, such an amazing soul country itself. Was there any choice, or do you even think about using any English soul on here?
You know what there was? I mean, I had songs like From Soul to Soul. I mean, we were going back to Life. There were songs like that. Keep on Moving, because Soul to Soul was a big influence growing up as well. Hanging on a String, Loose Ends. I mean, there's some really cool movements. Even Sade, some of her stuff was cool. But I thought when I was putting the record together, it just felt like that I was running into 40 songs, 50 songs. I was like, okay, I've got to back this down. There's no real reason why there wasn't any UK songs on there, but it just happened to be that I had to whittle it down to a sort of a nice definitive collection. Otherwise it was going on for like the box set for like 10 days, which was like nice if you wanted a box set for Christmas, but right now, the single, it was like, let's get back down to 12, 13 songs, that would be cool.
Well, you just mentioned some amazing artists in there. I mean, is UK soul underrated, do you think?
Do you know what? I think, those artists in particular, broke out and made an impact. I don't think it's necessarily underrated. I think it's understanding the commerciality of, or how commercially viable certain artists are, People kind of want fast food, it seems, nowadays. Well, I think we've always wanted to pop into a McDonald's once in a while and grab a meal. And it's kind of the same way the music industry is now, even more so for soul artists, because those bodies of work that soul artists will create, or jazz artists, is kind of being sort of segmented into this now way in which people now receive music through iTunes to pick the songs they want and leave the ones they don't. So you may have a real nice common consistency and thread through your record, but people are like, you know what, just give me a hit. I'll take a hit from you, and if you want to give me 2 or 3 songs from your album that are great, and there are 7 or 8 that are just album fillers, I'll take the 3 from you, I'll take a couple from Kings of Leon, I'll take some from a different artist. So I think it's even harder for soul artists. And it's a case of, if the soul artist wants to indulge in a slightly more, I say commercial, but just something that radio is playing at the time, and having a bit more sense as to what's going on. Because if they're going to keep it just retro and cool, then it may end up just being in that category where people have to find you, as opposed to it being in their faces. That's the difference, I think.
I consider you a soul man. Do you consider yourself a soul man?
Yeah, at heart, all of it's soul music that I'm creating. It's that creating that performance. And every time I've gone out and done acoustic performances, and it's just me and my acoustic guitarist, I know that the performance is all from the soul. The way that he's playing those guitar licks, the way that I'm projecting my voice, it's soul. And then as soon as you put production on it, it's then deemed as R&B, pop, rock, whatever you want it to be. But it's soul music.
When we go back and listen to Born to Do It, I mean, you were, 19 years old then?
Yeah.
That's a pretty incredible record for a 19-year-old to put out.
Yes.
Do you ever go back and revisit that record and listen to it?
I now can appreciate the record much more than I did at the time. In the sense that I was excited about the album, but by the time the album had actually dropped, Walking Away had gone backs and forwards through so many different record companies who were pitching to want to sign the record. It'd been like 6 months of Walking Away. Rewind had been out for maybe a year at that point. So it was like an album that could never have been sort of built the way that it was then now, because that song would have been leaked, the whole world would have been exposed to it, and it would have been old news. So I think just by the virtue of how well Walking Away did, it blew my mind, and it makes me, when I listen to the record now, recognise that I was just a hungry 16, 17-year-old kid who just wanted to prove to the world that I could create music. Never thought it would be number one, never thought it would sell so many records and be the building block to my career, but an incredible starter.
Well, selling so many million records when you were that young, what did that do to you personally?
Do you know what? I kind of hit the ground running, and I was like surfing the wave. I remember there was a moment where my mum and I were walking up the high street, and this was the time when Rewind with the Artful Dodger had just kind of started to break onto radio. And she said, you know what, there'll be one day that you won't be able to walk through this high street again. And I was like, oh, come on, Mum, it's fine, I'll be fine. Little did she say that within 4 or 5 months of that song being released, I actually haven't walked Southampton High Street since then. And I tried it. I went back there thinking, all confidently thinking, you know what, it's fine. Just throw on a couple of glasses, little. Oh no, bad move. And a Saturday as well. Why would you do that? So I tried it, didn't quite work. But you know what, things did change for me. But I think the one thing that you never lose is the way in which your parents brought you up. And just the sense of self-respect and respect for others and morals in life. I think, to be honest, there's the rock and roll lifestyle, and I completely get it, act the part, become the part. But there's certain attitudes and way that you just deal with people that I've just been raised, and I think that should never change regardless of your circumstances. So that's me up to this day. Really.
Oh, well, you must have had an arrogant rock star.
I mean, obviously,
in the career
there's been a few TVs out the windows, just to kind of make you feel good about yourself for a second, So I think, well, it's a bit disposable TV. It hasn't hurt anyone. We're cool.
Yeah. Driving the motorcycle through the hotel.
Why not?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's an easier route.
Yeah, and that's right. And that was only last night.
It was fine. And to be honest, I tried to get up the elevator and it didn't quite fit in, so I just left it half in, half out. It was all cool for me. It's been an incredible rollercoaster ride, and there's been some exciting times along the way. But to be honest, to be here 10 years on and to have seen so many people come and go, that's one of the things I found quite interesting. People who were destined to be the next big thing, or were selling so many singles and so many albums off their first record and then never to be seen again. It's a very fickle and difficult music industry to stay into, you know, and I think it all comes down to one common factor, which is a hit song. I know that I'm one hit song always from being on top of my game. If I'm in the studio and I'm writing a song, if I'm there and it's not the first song and it's not the second, maybe the 10th, 20th, somewhere along the line, I feel confident in myself there'll be a hit. And that's all that you need. It's like David Beckham, you give him enough points of having an opportunity to put a free kick in that area, I'm sure he'll put it in the back of the net, you know, so it's, you just got to pick your chances.
Can you hear a hit in your own work? Or can you get to the end of a song and know, you know, that's the one?
Do you know what, I can tell, I can weed out the ones that I know that aren't so good. I definitely have that ability where I listen to it and I think, yeah, it's cool, but it's not doing it for me anymore. And then there's an energy about certain songs when you strike a chord and you hit that note, and it just like, you hit a chorus that you're just like, it's the chorus really, because the verse melodies, they lead up to that kind of impact of that chorus. You get a hook melody, you're just like, oh, that feels good. And every time you play it, you think, still feels good. I mean, with Rise and Fall, I'd had that, just the chorus, nothing written for it, for maybe 6 months, just sitting there, and I was like, there's something feels hit about this, but I'm having trouble really in these verses. It took me a while to get the verses down, but little behold, it kind of ended up being something that ended up having quite a big impact. So,
yeah, over the course of the career, you've had the opportunity to work with some amazing people. Have you been starstruck yourself, going into a room and finding somebody there?
Yeah, I mean, I find I'm starstruck by actors and actresses because it's a world that I'm not quite familiar with. Musicians, I kind of know how it sort of starts. You know, you had that dream and you put music out there and it connected, and next thing it's happening. But I think when I was working on a song which was Come Together, and we were playing at Radio City in New York, and it was for the John Lennon tribute, but at the same time it was for the firemen who passed away in 9/11. So I was like on stage just practicing, and I could hear someone sort of shouting, saying, "Yeah, good job, well done." And I was just like still in the mix of doing my rehearsal, and I looked over, and then on came Kevin Spacey, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And I really didn't know what to say. I just wanted to say, you were so good in Seven. You were great in Usual Suspects as well, you know? And The Negotiator. I just for me, lost the plot for a second. I had to try and focus myself back in. Yeah. But those things definitely kind of fazed me a little bit, you know?
Yeah. So what happens after this album? Is it back to the Craig David penned album?
There'll be a new album with new songs. I think it's very difficult for me to not be in a studio creating new music. This was a different and new challenge for me. I just wanted to do something that just pushed me in a different direction. And I like to kind of put myself in positions which are slightly out of my comfort zone, expose myself a little bit, because vocally I felt confident enough that I could pull these songs off. Be it that, like I said, the holy grail that surrounds these songs, that you love or hate my versions of these songs. I know that vocally I sang them, you know, I didn't feel like it sounds a bit karaoke. It's like, no, I'm singing them. I know there's a performance in this. But I know the next record, hopefully using this as a benchmark, will help me kind of find great songs. And then when the time comes, what the production will be. But it's all about the song at the end of the day.
And how's the Artful Dodger? Do you ever hook up with him any more these days?
You know what? To be honest, the Artful Dodger aren't really together. I mean, they were outfit between Peter Devereaux and Mark Hill. And Mark Hill was the guy that I did the first album with, predominantly with. And they kind of went their both their separate ways. Mark has got 2 children now, and he's living out in Ibiza. And funny enough, actually, last week I was speaking to him, and I was saying, look, we must put some music together, because you know, things change, and you both go on your different ways and you do stuff. But he was like saying, what music are you into now? What are you feeling? What tracks do you want? I just said, give me some Feel Me In rewinds, man. And it was like, because we wrote the script, you know, so we're on the right tip.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So performances
coming up. Hopefully we'll be touring at the end of summer.
Uh-huh.
But at the moment I'm just going out promoting like crazy, me and my acoustic guitarist, and just singing, you know. I mean, I'm loving the interviews and breaking things down, but as soon as you do a performance, it kind of really, I guess, captivates the crowd that you're in front of. Even if it's a few people, I think any perceptions that you've had about you, or anything that people have heard or want to know, it's all in that performance. So I've been enjoying that.
Well, there's the album. It's signed, sealed, delivered. It's Craig David, and great to have you here at Undercover.
Absolute pleasure.